So what did we discuss about this cost thing? What we have to know is work, cost, time. These are the things that we are talking about. So if we also did 1 or 2 sums, if I am not wrong. Last class? One sum. So basically the things that you have to remember is if there are 10 people who contribute towards something. 10 people are contributing towards something, but the 10 people paid 100 rupees each. Okay, so how much have they paid together? 100 into 10, that is how much? 1000 rupees. So let's say 1000 rupees is the necessary contribution for the party. However, out of 10, 5 people do not turn up. So how much did each person have to pay? Less or more? More कैसे हुआ? More, correct. Lesser the people, more the amount increase हो जाएगा. How much will you have to pay? 1000 divided by? So how much are you paying now? 200. You are paying double the amount. So basically the point is when the number of people go down, the contribution for each person goes up. When the number of people increase, the contribution for each person goes down. That is the first thing you have to remember. Second thing that you have to remember is if 100 rupees is required for a party and 5 people are attending it, how much does each one have to pay? This is the inverse. How much does each one have to pay?
How much is the cost?
1000 rupees is the estimate for the party. 5 people are joining. How much is each person's contribution? How did you do that?
1000.
Divided by number of people. So total cost of the party divided by number of people. So always if I take number of people as X and contribution required is 1000, then what is the amount that each one has to pay? 1000. If 1000 upon X is the amount each of them will pay. Third thing. If I take 15 days, if I take 2 days to finish a work, I am given a job, it requires 2 days. So how much work will I do in 1 day? 1 by 2. So if I require 5 days to do a work, how much work will I do in 1 day? 1 by 5. If the same work is given to you and me, I take 5 days, you take 8 days. So how much work are we together doing in 1 day? Together, how much are we doing? Single person can do how much work? I take 5 days, he takes 8 days. So in 1 day, how much work am I doing?
X upon 8 plus X upon 5.
X upon 8, X कहाँ से आया? X का तो बात ही नहीं किया मैंने.
Let this be X.
Upon what upon? Yes, I take 5 days to complete a work. You take 8 days to complete a work. So in 1 day, how much work do I do? 1 upon 5. In 1 day, how much work you do?
1 upon 8.
So total work, how much did we do? 1 upon 8 plus 1 upon 5 or 1 upon 5 plus 1 upon 8. These are the things you have to remember. Alright? Sure. Let us take up question number. I'll read the questions for you, so don't worry. Speed is okay for you now? Greater and smaller हमेशा identify करना सीखना. Okay. I also did this sum. A man buys an article for rupees X and sells it for 56 rupees more. ये वाला किया था मैंने ये सब. This is question number 2 of your section E. Section E का question number 2 है ये. But I'll do it again for you guys if you want. A man buys an art. I'll tell it orally later on. Let me do ये वाला किया है. हाँ. I will do another sum and I will read out this sum for you. Try to do it by yourself. Okay. Rohit is on a tour and he has rupees 360 left for his expenses. Rohit is on a tour and he has rupees 360 left of his expenses. If he exceeds his tour by 4 days, he is on a tour for let's say 10 days. So he exceeds his tour by 4 days, मतलब 14 days का tour हो गया. तो can I say each day का cost, मतलब each day का expense उसको कम करना पड़ेगा. If my budget for 10 days is 1000 rupees, so my budget for each day is 100 rupees. But if I extend my trip and make it for 20 days, Then budget for each day becomes 50 rupees or not? Budget कम हो जाना पड़ेगा. If I have 1000 rupees only in my hand, so 50 rupees only I can spend if I extend the trip. Correct? So Rohit is on a tour and he has rupees 360 left of his expenses. If he exceeds his tour by 4 days, he must cut down his daily expense by rupees 3. ठीक है? For how many days is Rohit on the tour? How many days is he on the tour? This is your question of E part का, question number 1 E part का third question है. Rohit is on a tour with rupees 360 left. जितना भी पैसा था उसके पास, उसका 360 अभी बचा हुआ. If he exceeds his tour by 4 days, he must cut down the daily expenses by rupees 3. How many days is Rohit on the tour? Let the number of, जो पूछा है उसी को हम लोग usually x लेते हैं. Let the number of days that Rohit is on a tour be equal to x. Now what is he doing? He is extending his trip by how many days? 4 days. So now after extension, how many days is he spending? X plus 4 days now. पहले x days रहने वाला था, अभी x plus 4 days रह रहा है. How much amount does he have in his hand? 360 rupees. So what is the money that he has for himself? 360 rupees. 360 rupees अगर x days के लिए उसके पास होता, तो each days का day का खर्चा कितना होता? Let us think it by our analysis. If I have 500 rupees for 5 days, how much am I spending per day? How did you do that? So if I have 360 rupees for x days, how much am I spending per day? फिर से सोचो. If बेटा, I am teaching something. Put your pen down right now. Right now. If he has 360 rupees and he has to spend it in x days, what will be the expense for each day?
360 upon x.
If he has 360 rupees only, but he has to spend it for now he is spending x plus 4 days. So what is the expense for each day?
360 upon x plus 4 equals.
Did you understand how you will trick yourself to remember these things? Use numbers. Okay? So can I say expense for each day for previous case would have been 360 upon x?
Minus 360.
रुक जाओ. Expense for extended trip. Extend कर दिया तो कितना भी कर रहा है, पर डे का कितना है? 360 upon x plus 4. Which one is greater?
360 upon x.
किसका डिनोमिनेटर बड़ा है? इसका. जिसका डिनोमिनेटर बड़ा है वो नंबर छोटा हो जाता है कि नहीं? Correct? So this is greater than this. Okay. So what did they say? If he increases 4 more days with the same amount, he will have to cut rupees 3 for from daily expenses. तो इसका daily expense पहले इतना था, अभी इतना है, तो this minus this should be 3. Do you agree or not? So can I say this was his daily expense when he was there for x days. Now he has his daily expense as this. This is equal to 3.
Yes.
Will this give me a proper result?
Yes.
This is your equation. We can solve this and we can move on. Let me do another sum. Okay. Very similar sum. I will make you do it. I am doing another one. I am doing question number 6. A shopkeeper buys X books for rupees. खुद ही X डिफाइन कर दिया हम लोगों ने. Shopkeeper buys X books for rupees 720. With the cost of one book, write the cost of one book in terms of x. He buys, yes, help me out. A shopkeeper buys x books. Cost how many books? यहाँ पे लिखते हैं. Unitary method is my best friend. Books cost. One x books for how many rupees?
720 rupees.
So one book for how many rupees?
720 upon x.
You know now how we do this? X books, so दोनों को divide by x कर दोगे तो x by x becomes 1. So that's why we get this. Unitary method is your best friend in CPST, cost related sum. हो गया, इतना first part हो गया. Next, if the cost of each book was 5 rupees less, now what is the cost of each book?
Minus 5.
Okay, cost of each book. अच्छा, second case लिखते हैं. ये फर्स्ट केस था हम लोग का. सेकंड केस, if the cost of each book was 5 rupees less, the number of books that he could have bought for the same amount would be 2 more. So if cost of each book we don't know, cost of each book we know in terms of x only. If cost of each book was 5 rupees less, ये कॉस्ट है ना each book का. 100 बुक्स, मैंने 100 रुपीज में 10 बुक खरीदे तो each book कितने का आया?
100/10.
तो 10 रुपीज का each book आया. लेकिन अगर each book 8 रुपीज का होता, ये मेरा 10 रुपीज है कि नहीं? 100/10 ये है. अगर each book 2 रुपीज लेस होता, मतलब 8 रुपीज का होता, then I could have bought 2 more books. So I could have bought how many books? X books नहीं. Are you understanding the logic? Okay. So what is the condition that they are saying? If cost of each book was 2 less, कितना less? 5 rupees. 5 less. So cost of each book was rupees 5 less. How many books could I have bought? Number of books bought was how much? Would have been x plus 2. Explaining 5 rupees 5 less for each book. This is the cost. This is the number of books. अगर ये cost सिर्फ 5 rupees हम लोग टर्म लेते per book. ये cost of each book है कि नहीं? Cost of one book is this. इसका -5 अगर हम लोग करते तो हम लोग कितने बुक्स खरीद पाते? 2 एक्स्ट्रा बुक्स खरीद पाते. तो अगर x plus 2 बुक्स खरीद रहे तो what is the cost of each book? अगर x बुक्स खरीद रहे तो कॉस्ट ऑफ ईच बुक इज 720 by x. अगर x plus 2 बुक्स खरीद रहे तो कॉस्ट ऑफ ईच बुक इज हाउ मच?
720 upon x.
Cost of each book is now 720 upon x plus 2. Am I right?
Yes.
So there are two ways to approach this. One is that 7, that's what they have said. If the cost of each book would have been 5 less, then we could have bought these many books. So cost of one book is this. Now cost of one book is this. So can I equate these? Equate कर सकते हैं कि नहीं? This was the cost of one book. Now this is the cost of one book. Cost of each book was 5 rupees less. Then this is the cost of each book. Are you understand? Less हो गया ना ये? This is greater than this or not? 720 upon x is greater than 720 upon x plus 2.
So we can write it as 720 upon x.
So we can write this as 720 upon x minus 5 is equal to 720 upon x plus 2. We can also write it like this. That अगर एक 5 rupees कम हो गया तो क्या हुआ? This minus this is 5 rupees. So we can write as 720 upon x minus 720 upon x plus 2 is equal to 5. This equation becomes the same thing. इसको इधर लाओ, इसको उधर लाओ. But I framed it according to the question. If cost of each book was 5 rupees less, then the cost of each book would have been this or not?
Yes.
So that's what I equated. Simply I equated that. Will you be able to solve this?
Yes, ma'am.
Alright.
Can we start solving?
No, I will do a few sums. After that you solve these and I will give you some sums to do also. Let me do a few sums. ये वाला करते हैं.
Number?
हाँ. 8. Number 8. एक बार चेक तो कर लाई है कि नहीं? नहीं लाई है. Okay. A fruit seller bought X apples for rupees 1200. X apples कितने रुपीस का खरीदा? 1200 rupees. ठीक है. So apples cost X apples for 1200. One apple for 1200 upon X. मिल गया. नहीं ढूंढने बोले तो भी ढूंढ लो. One apple always helps us. Next. If 10 of the apples were rotten and he sold each of the rest for rupees 3 more. 10 एप्पल, x एप्पल्स खरीदे थे. अभी now new number of apples क्या हो गए? x थे, उसमें से 10 were rotten. So what is the new number of apples? X minus 10. Do you agree?
Yes.
Okay. And he would have sold each apple for each apple, cost of each apple for 3 rupees more. Then the cost price of each apple. Write the selling price of x minus 10 apples. Okay. So what has he done? 1200 upon x is cost for each apple considering when he bought. But now when he has to sell these many apples. What is he selling it at? What is the cost that he is selling it at? 1200 upon x minus 10 होगा कि नहीं अभी? x minus 10 apples बेच रहा है. But इस पे कितना profit कमा रहा है वो?
Minus.
What is the profit?
1x equals 3.
नहीं ऐसा मत करो. This will get complicated.
मैम
Keep it order. नहीं कोई जरूरत नहीं है. It will get complicated. Listen, I'll make it easier for you. X apples he bought for 1200 rupees. So each apple he bought for 1200 upon x rupees. If he sold, how many apples are he going to sell? He can only sell these many apples. So number of apples is
to the cost
is equal to x minus 10. And what is the cost of each apple now?
1200 upon x.
Right now, what is his cost? What is he selling it at? Cost of each apple जो previously उसने pay किया था plus
3.
If I buy 5 apples for 5 rupees, what is the price? 5 apples for 10 rupees each. What is the cost that I have paid?
50.
How did you calculate it?
5 times 10.
So if I sold 10 minus x apples for rupees 1200 upon x plus 3, what is the for each apple? Each apple का cost है नहीं है. So what is the entire amount? Both has to be multiplied or not?
1200 plus 300.
Do we have to multiply this? Or
yes.
So what will be the selling price? Total selling price क्या होगा? Selling price total बोला है ना? Write the selling price of x minus 10 apples. Selling price of one apple is how much?
1200 upon x.
Selling price of these many apples is how much?
1200 upon x minus 10.
Selling price of x minus 10 apples, understanding, is equal to number of apples into
okay.
cost of each apple. Always we do this? Always. Next, third part. If we made a profit of rupees 60 from this transaction, form an equation in terms of x and find the value of x. क्या बोला उसने फिर से पढ़ते हैं. If he made a profit of rupees 60 from this transaction, what is the transaction that he did? First he bought apple, then he sold apple. So bought for lesser or sold for lesser?
Sold for more.
अगर profit किया है तो कौन सा ज़्यादा है? ये वाला ज़्यादा होगा या इसका cost price ज़्यादा होगा?
नीचे वाला selling price.
तो profit उसने किया है 60 rupees. So what does this mean? Profit क्या होता है बेटा? Selling price minus cost price होता है कि नहीं?
हाँ.
Selling price क्या है उसका? X minus 10 into 1200 upon x plus 10, x plus 3. Any problem in understanding this? And what was the cost price for him?
1200 upon x.
No. For each apple थोड़ी ना है.
Okay.
Total क्या था उसका? Number of apples into cost that he sold it at? How much did he bought it for?
1200.
He bought x apples for rupees 1200, so minus 1200 is the profit that he has earned or not?
Yes.
So what is this? You can't solve directly because here there is no equal to. This is where you can solve the sum. Are you understanding? Once again I will repeat it. X apple he bought for 1200. 10 were rotten, so he can only sell x minus 10 apples. Now what is the cost that he has put up? Like what is the mark price for him? The cost that he bought each apple for plus rupees 3.
Yes.
This is the price for each apple he is asking for. How many apples are there? X minus 10 apples are there. Number of apples into cost of each apple gives me the cost selling price of the apple. But what did they say? He made a profit of rupees 60. So selling price minus cost price is rupees 60. Obviously profit क्या होता है? जिसमें जितने में मैंने खरीदा जितने में मैंने बेचा माइनस जितने में मैंने खरीदा. Can you frame this equation? Equation is ready. Can you solve this? Come on. Write it down, solve the equation, tell me the answers and then I'll give you a few sums to solve.